So, you have endeavoured to learn more, dear traveller. Welcome to the technical walkthrough for Compendium, Eldenvale, where we shall delve deeper into some of the magic the Fracture Sounds team have created for this library, as well as the controls they have included in the past. If it is a general overview you seek, you can hear all of the instruments in this library in the general walkthrough, or should you seek even more detail not found in this video, check out the user manual linked on the product page. It truly is a sacred tome with a vast wealth of knowledge inside. Today we are going to study the arcane wizardry behind some of the Eldenvale instruments, starting with the Bouzouki. This instrument has two types of samples: melody strings, which are single note plucks, and open strings, which are real strummed chords. When you play a note, the engine determines the most appropriate string and fret to play it on, and plays the remaining open strings to act as a drone chord behind the melody. Now, if we look at a Bouzouki and imagine a capo on it, the root note selector is essentially controlling where that capo is placed, which shifts the key of the open strings, but also affects where on the fretboard the melody string is being played. You can use the slider here to change the balance between the melody and the open strings. And if you wish to play the Bouzouki as a polyphonic, plucked instrument like the lute and theorbo, you can do so by simply clicking the on-off button here. The Bouzouki was recorded in a dry studio, which gives us this lovely crisp sound that you've been hearing, but you can use the custom position mode to place it in the same room as some of the other instruments, and this gives you access to the mic mixer. Now, this is the Celtic harp glissando control. When enabled, all you need to do is hold down the notes you wish to hear on the keyboard and use a MIDI CC to control the glissando, like so. This means no more tedious MIDI programming or doing this or fitting your music to pre-recorded scales or phrases and having to time it up. You have full control over the notes and the speed. By default, the dynamics mode is set to ascending, which means the higher notes in the glissando will be louder than the lower notes. This is quite a natural behaviour for most of your glissando needs, but there are also modes to control the dynamics using the mod wheel, or via velocity, and this is note dependent, so if you play one note loud and then another soft, they will remain at that dynamic during the glissando as well. The Gliss controller is mapped to CC11, as by default this is what the Complete Control touch strip uses, but you can of course change it using the selector here. The advantage of a touchpad or touch strip is you can start or end a glissando wherever you like. But it does work just fine on a regular fader as well, or program directly into your DAW like so. Some other performance features to point out in the plucked section are the hammered Dulcimer, where there is a short roll when playing with a high velocity, and we can use the mod wheel, or the dynamics control, to bring in long rolls. This means you can play single strokes as normal and then easily introduce rolls into your music without needing to switch articulations. If your keyboard has aftertouch, you can also control the rolls using the pressure of your fingers on the notes, and this feature can be turned on in the settings page. On the E-bow articulation, the mod wheel will control the dynamics as standard. The Cimbalom also features the rolls controlled by the mod wheel. And the final instrument to mention in this section is a medieval lute, which has 4 types of ornaments triggered on high velocities. You can change which type will be triggered by clicking or using the key switches found here. We have a minor second up, minor second down, major second up, and major second down. Now let's take a look at some of the legato instruments in Compendium Eldenvale, starting with the Uilleann Pipes. At face value, this instrument looks pretty simple, but there's a bunch of features and articulations here that make it incredibly playable. First, we've separated the drones, which are highlighted by the purple keys. And the chanter, which is the melodic part of the instrument, highlighted in blue. For this, we have a couple of playability options. On low velocity, you'll hear a slide up to the played note. Whilst on high velocity, you'll hear a quick ornament before the note. All of our legato instruments have same note transitions, which are triggered by playing a note quickly after releasing the one before. On the other wind instruments in this library, this causes the note to be retongued. But on the Uilleann Pipes, the 2 notes are joined together by an ornament, as is common in the traditional Irish style of playing. Finally, the green key activates the finger vibrato, which creates a super clean transition between the vibrato and non-vibrato samples. And using all of these articulation types in conjunction can create an extremely realistic performance. There is similar programming on the tin whistle, where at low velocity you trigger a slow portamento transition. then ornaments on high velocity, and both whistles feature modelled breath vibrato, generated through internal programming rather than sampled layers. Because there's no crossfading between vibrato and non-vibrato samples, the instruments preserve a really consistent soloistic tone. If you, like me, are used to working with virtual instruments from 20 years ago, the idea of modelled vibrato might have you a little bit worried, but in my opinion, this sounds perfectly realistic. The low whistle also uses the same velocity controls again, and the same modelled vibrato. The last instrument in the woodwind collection is the wooden flute. At low velocity, the wooden flute will have a softer, breathier attack and release. And at higher velocity, you'll hear an overblown entry to the note. Like the other woodwind instruments, there is both dynamics and colour, which can control both the overall volume and timbre of the instrument. As with the bouzouki and lutes, all of the woodwind instruments have been recorded in a dry studio, which allows for intricate, convincing legato and vibrato programming. It also means they are incredibly versatile. Using the custom position control, we can place the instruments in different places in the soundstage. This is achieved using impulse responses recorded in the hall at Nave Studios. By default, each of the wind instruments are placed in slightly different spots, so they sound like an ensemble when played together, but you can move them around however you like. For instance, wooden flute is slightly to the left. Let's put it over on the right. Or the back of the studio. And thanks to the impulse responses being captured with a bunch of mics just like any other instrument, we can use the perspective slider to change mic positions as well. The close mic is super dry, perfect for adding reverb, so let's do that now. Our default is the lush reverb, giving a very mystical tone. For a more traditional sounding space, the room or hall algorithms are great. Or we can journey somewhere truly ethereal with shimmer. These are the high strings in Compendium Eldenvale, a combined chamber ensemble of violins and violas. Like all of the legato instruments in the Fracture Sounds collection, there are 2 legato modes to choose from. In classic mode, you have a less advanced system where you can set the speed and adaptive speed range of the legato transitions, quite good for playability. However, Smart Legato is on another level entirely, and really sets Fracture Sounds apart, so let me show you how it works. First, I'm going to move the latency time to 0 milliseconds. This isn't necessarily going to sound very realistic, but it's a far snappier experience when playing it on the keyboard. This also means you're likely to have a far easier time quantizing it. Now I can increase the latency to the full 300 milliseconds. This gives the Smart Legato engine more time to look ahead at the incoming MIDI and optimise the playback for the most realistic sound. No matter what speed you're playing at, it will always be exactly 300 milliseconds behind the note. The only problem is we are now 300 milliseconds behind the note, so to compensate I need to use a negative delay in my DAW. It's important to note here that Logic and a few other DAWs will also push forward the MIDI CC info like mod wheel data by 300 milliseconds as well, and in that case you'll want to switch on delay CC data here, which will push it back by 300 milliseconds to match the note transitions. Now, when I play back my recording, there's no need for me to tediously move notes around to make sure the transitions are perfect or guess the delay time the developers have used. The Smart Legato has done all the hard work for me, and everything is perfectly in time. And the wonderful thing about this is, because it's all working in milliseconds, it will sound perfectly in time at any tempo. In the Cello Phrases patch, we are presented with a repertory of improvised phrases performed around different root keys, designed to imbue a piece of music with a haunting sense of expressiveness and realism. The root key is selected on the interface or using the key switches, then a selection of improvised phrases based around that root key will be presented. Using the waveform editor, you can adjust the start and end points of the phrase you have just played. So for example, if you just wanted to use the second half of this one, you can move the locators found here, and now it will sound like this. And the positions you choose will be remembered for each phrase individually, so we can edit another phrase on a different note, then play the original note again, and the settings remain the same as they were before. Finally, let's take a look at the fantasy pads, which are housed inside the Layer Blends engine, which you'll be familiar with if you've used some of our other libraries such as solo string formations and orchestral atmospheres. The way it works is by combining up to 3 sounds, which can then be either stacked together on the mod wheel, or crossfaded between using the X-Fade mode. To load up a new sound set, you can select each sound individually using the menus, or shuffle all of the sounds unless you wish to keep any, in which case you can hit the lock button found here to keep it. The LFO control can create a bit more movement and texture. And there's your usual controls such as attack, release, but we also have this low pass and high pass filter which also sculpts the sound a bit more. Next we have the lo-fi control, which is designed to emulate some of the sounds you get from recording on analog equipment. There's a bunch of stuff that you can tweak here in the parameters, such as saturation, age of the tape, warble, and some tape machine noises, as well as a few different speaker presets. My personal favourite being car radio and portable cassette. And finally, we have delay, and reverb controls. You can access the 20 presets provided with this library via Kontakt snapshots. Here's a couple of examples. So, congratulations, Traveller! You have ascended to the next level of understanding the world of Compendium, Eldenvale, and now have the means to be capable of wielding its power. If you're interested in the library, I hope this has given you more insight into what it can do, or if you're already a proud owner, maybe you've discovered a trick or two for getting the most out of it. In any case, remember there is a wealth of knowledge to be found within the user manual, but if you have any questions, please leave them in a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, becoming a member of the Fracture Sounds Guild so you don't miss any more wizardry in the future, and I will bid thee farewell.